Matt Ford in the New Republic just released an article that is chef's kiss. Wait until you hear the title of it. It's just exactly the kind of attitude and the kind of mentality that we need to have right now. The piece is entitled "The Imminent Joy of DeTrumpification." I'm going to read some excerpts from it and then obviously intersperse my commentary. As always, I encourage you to go read the entire piece. It came out on December 20th. Again, the title, The Imminent Joy of DeTrumpification. Love it. As the president graffitis his name to beloved institutions and builds monuments to his own vanity, we must focus on how much fun it will be to tear it all down. I'm somebody who's always telling my audience, we have to be present right now. We have to be focused on what is happening right now, meeting emergent needs, caring for each other, resisting. But at the same time, we must also be forward looking. We have to dream of the future that we want to build. We have to have a vision for where we want to go in order to be able to plot our path, in order to be able to strategize to get there. That's why I'm always talking about the day of accountability, the era of accountability, the future when we will all get justice for what is happening now. I try and have that framing because if we don't have that expectation, if we do not set that expectation, we will never bring that future about. If we don't right now in this moment say, there will be a time when we get justice for what is happening now. We will demand nothing less. We will plan for nothing less than a future with democracy. We will accept nothing short of a post-Trump era in which there is justice for what is being done now and a better future in America that works for working class people. If we have that mental framework and that expectation, if we can see the future that we need and deserve, then we can move toward it. We can make the future ours. We can shape the future. Donald Trump doesn't get to shape the future. Project 2025 doesn't get to shape the future. It's that combination of being present right now, seeing where we need to go, and being committed to working on the steps to get us there. All of that is really important. So it's not pie in the sky. It's not a fantasy to dream about where we need to go. You got to have a vision, and then you have to work to implement it. Gosh, the Heritage Foundation was really good at that. They spent decades trying to implement their awful, terrible vision because we were just kind of stuck in one place. We have to be forward thinking. We have to be hoping for the era of de-Trumpification. It's going to feel real fucking good when we get to undo all of this and we get to enact justice. So, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pontificate quite so much here. There was no shortage of bad news to cover in 2025, but I want to end the year by looking to the future and focusing on something more joyous, de-Trumpification. I spent most of the year, indeed most of this last decade, thinking about one man. God, how much of our mental bandwidth, how much of our agony, how much of our headspace and our time has been consumed by a fragile narcissist. It's just, oh God, what a waste of resources. Okay, now for just a moment, I want to think about what comes after him. One day, likely by January 20th, 2029, Donald Trump will no longer be the president of the United States. Maybe earlier. He's very old and not in good health. The Constitution will bar him from seeking a third term, no matter what nonsense Alan Dershowitz plans to soon publish. It is highly probable that Trump will be replaced by a new Democratic president. America's economic, social, and moral decline in the last 11 months makes it unlikely that his successor will win the most votes in 2028. They're going to try really hard, though, to suppress the vote, to disenfranchise as many voters as they possibly can. That's why we need not only the vision for the future, but the steps to get us there, right? Because they're going to try and suppress the vote. They're going to try and get up to hinky shit. We need to anticipate that. We need to have our own strategies, and that includes massive voter turnout in the midterms and in the next presidential election. The new president, whoever they happen to be, will face countless choices about how to rebuild after Trump's second term. Some things simply can't be undone. The United States will likely never recover the full trust of our allies in Europe and Asia, who now know that another Trump is always at most 4 years away. Well, seems like we need some big reforms to make sure that that doesn't happen. I made a video the other day where I was like, was it yesterday? I was saying, why is it that we as a society have not crafted, why is it our Constitution hasn't crafted guardrails to protect us from a fragile narcissist? Part of the post-Trump era can be creating reforms so that we don't have an uber conservative, fringe, white, Christian nationalist Supreme Court majority. We don't have members of Congress who are willing to betray their oath to their constituents and the Constitution in order to help platform a would-be dictator, right? I don't know that we have to believe that another Trump could always happen every 4 years. Like, well, no, that's not a future that we have to accept. We can create reforms so that doesn't happen. Anyway, confidence in the rule of law will remain shaken for generations as long as the Roberts Court reigns. I think that's definitely true. And our reputation as a home for immigrants and a citadel of democratic and constitutional government as well. Other damage will be repairable, but only with time and effort. Federal agencies will need to rehire thousands of civil servants to replace those purged by figures like Elon Musk and Russell Vought. Institutional knowledge and the Environmental Protection Agency, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will need to be replenished. Not only replenished, not just replenished, the harm that was done will need to be undone. They will need to be reconstructed, rebuilt. Funding for academic and scientific research will need to resume. There will be thousands of green card applicants to approve and hundreds of citizenship ceremonies to hold. Criminal investigations will need to be opened and antitrust litigation must begin again. For now, I want to focus on the less impactful but highly symbolic aspects of DeTrumpification. It will not be enough to simply reverse Trump's policies or unwind his executive orders when a new Democratic president takes office. I agree that won't be enough. The next administration must commit itself, in addition, to purging the aesthetic rot of Trump's second term from our national life. DeTrumpification must be celebrated as an act of victory and an exercise in joy. Take, for example, Trump's campaign against the Kennedy Center. Congress created the Cultural Center in 1958 and designated it by law as a living memorial for John F. Kennedy after his assassination in 1963. The famed stages and theaters along the Potomac have hosted some of the greatest artists from the United States and around the world. Trump has spent most of 2025 desecrating the place. First, he purged most of the board that governs the institution. Then he replaced its members with pliable ideologues and sycophantic cronies, capped off by installing himself as the new chairman. God, his ego is so fucking brittle. In recent months, Trump has been personally overseeing its cultural work. This week, his underlings sought to capstone their cultural vandalism by renaming the center itself. Trump claimed the board voted unanimously to rename it the Trump Kennedy Center, but then there was reporting from one member of the board that was like, no, that's not true. It was not unanimous. Even the North Korean regime might blanch at this narcissism. Far from saving the institution, Trump's takeover has destroyed the Kennedy Center's finances and its reputation through boycotts and purges, with ticket sales at pandemic-level lows. The attempted renaming is manifestly illegal since Congress named the Kennedy Center by law. With its usual regard for the rule of law, the Trump regime paid no heed. After a half-century of reading the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, the building's marble edifice now also bears the Donald J. Trump "and" on top of it. In typical slapdash fashion, the second "the" still remains on the facade. When those letters come down during the next president's term, it should not be done in the middle of the night or without any warning. Tearing down these nameplates will be as much about telling the truth as anything else. Other tasks will be more complicated. So far, Trump's most egregious act was the demolition of the White House's historic East Wing. It came without any public notice or consultation, without any permission from Congress, and without approval from key historical or architectural boards. The president simply hired some construction equipment and began tearing down public property. That's ours. The White House is the people's house. Trump wants to replace it with his grotesque ballroom plan. The corrupt and self-serving ballroom project is an ongoing scar on one of the most important public sites in America. And yet part of me still hopes that Trump completes the project before the end of his second term. I can imagine no greater visual for the next Democratic president's first 100 days than demolishing whatever monstrosity he built. The ballroom's proposed architectural flaws will likely necessitate this either way, but the next president should make a show of it. For now, it is enough to say that the end of Trump's presidency must be palpably different from previous changes in administration. DeTrumpification must have a visual and physical record. It must be an event and a celebration. It must be an enduring memory and a warning to anyone who hopes to venerate authoritarian figures on American soil in the future. It must represent not just a political defeat, but a societal rejection of Trumpism itself. I wholeheartedly agree, and I would ask, what kind of de-Trumpification are you most looking forward to?